There we go. Remembered. So this time last year, well, it was actually in July, so a couple months prior to this last year, I did the first resonance rituals workshop, which I actually talk about inside of Money Magic, the new book that I released. And it was such a game changer for me and so many people who attended. And so much has happened in the last year. My understanding has deepened around the energetics of manifestation, cultivating physical into the reality. Just new layers have been downloaded since then. So I actually listened to the first resonance rituals workshop. You know, when you like create something and then you go and revisit that creation a year or two later and you're like, man, I was so novice. Like, I thought I knew it all, but I didn't. So this is just going to be such a deeper level than the last time I ran through this. And it was such a game changer for myself and so many people that participated. So I cannot wait to see what you guys create using these techniques and these concepts. Now, for those of you guys that are joining me for the first time, welcome, welcome. It's such an honor to be your guide on this journey. If you have managed to, if you were part of Playful Millions or you've managed to catch that training, you will have heard me talk a lot about how basically there's a tango that takes place between the physical and non-physical components. And when we have integrity between these two things, in other words, intentions matching actions, intentions being the divine feminine, the non-physical, and actions, words, behaviors being the physical, the divine masculine, magic unfolds in our reality. Now, resonance rituals is going to be a deep dive into the non-physical. If you want to learn more about that tango or the divine masculine, I highly recommend you go check out that those Playful Millions replays, which are in the group. You can also email support at the Flow Protocols. I'll put that email down later.com, and we will send you the links for that. I highly recommend that. But resonance rituals is going to be a deep dive into the non-physical, the divine feminine intentions, desires. So this is a completely different way to create, and it's going to radically shift the way that you show up in your reality and how much exertion or force or hard work you put into things. It's going to really reduce that. Things are going to come a lot easier once you start playing on this level, creating on this level. It's going to flow a lot easier. So before I get into that, I do have a giveaway, my magical chalice. This is from Playful Millions. On one of our calls, the last call, we had a spontaneity challenge because the vibration of play has a lot of spontaneity in it. So I invited you guys to share your spontaneous acts. I have a chalice full of names in here. So before I forget, let me just drum roll. Da, 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 da. Let me pick a winner. This is for a mystery ritual box. And I've got a name here. Kimberly. Congratulations, Kimberly. You have scored yourself a mysterious ritual box, so that will be on your way. Okay, so I want to give you guys a little bit of a breakdown before we start to kick into some of the techniques and the exercises together. You're going to get some homework every single week as well. I really, really recommend that you actually do the exercises, that you actually integrate, because you're the only person here. I can share with you these concepts, these techniques, but really you're the only person here that can guarantee the results for yourself. And that means integration. Same thing in Playful Millions. A lot of the exercises were around courage and overcoming shame. And those are things that you actually have to do. You can't just think about it and then be like, oh yeah, that feels good. I mean, that's part of it. But actually doing the exercises is really, really important. So before we kick into that, I want to explain to you my sort of definition and understanding of reality and how I create and work in and play really in this playground that we're in. So everything around us, all physical manifestations, your skin, this Zoom video, the microphone that I'm using, the waves, the grass, the sun, everything physical about this reality first begins as a resonance, as a wavelength. Science knows this. We already understand this about reality, that it is all resonance, it is all wavelengths. It's what makes our musical instruments make sounds. It's what makes the tides come and go. It's what makes a swing bounce back and forth. Everything is rooted in the non-physical before it is manifested into the physical as wavelengths. And there is an entanglement that occurs at this non-physical level. This is how everything engages with everything in our reality. Everything is entangled through a resonance. I'll share a video in the group later of somebody using a tuning fork, and it's I don't know off the top of my head, but it's like a 500 hertz tuning fork, and they're banging a 400 tuning fork next to it, and nothing really happens. And then they replace the other one with the same hertz of the other tuning fork, and suddenly the little ball that's against it starts to move. So there's a resonance to everything in this reality, and everything is entangled with one another. And what we do know, although we cannot fully explain it yet, quantum physics is trying to explain it, is that this entanglement responds to like resonances. So whatever your own vibration is, or whatever the vibration of a tuning fork or a physical object or a bee that's flying around outside, it doesn't matter, will attract like for like resonances. And this is how this interplay of reality is sort of going down around us, this playground that we're in. We're all non-physical beings embodying a physical body, and we're in this playground perceiving the physical through our senses, our sight, our touch, our taste, the sounds that we hear, which all begins as a resonance. Everything, the colors that you're seeing is an electromagnetic wave. We only really see a tiny, tiny portion of that. I think the human sees less than 1% of the electromagnetic spectrum. So we're quite blind in terms of what's really occurring around us when we're embodying a human nervous system. But what tends to happen is that we see the physical reality and we think that that is the truth of what is. We see our bank accounts and the figures that are in there. We see an email from somebody that maybe doesn't go down the way that we thought it would. And we think that this means we failed, or that we're not doing so well, or that we're doomed, or that we're going to go broke, or whatever. We perceive these wavelengths that are very limited through what we can actually see with our senses and feel as the truth of what is. But what we're going to be doing inside of resonance rituals is really expanding beyond our senses, understanding that what we're seeing, what we're hearing, what we're tasting, what we're touching, everything is really, really limited in terms of the field of possibilities all around us. And when we expand beyond our six senses and we start to play with resonances beyond what we can see, we begin to not only cultivate things to ourselves, attract similar resonances, physical manifestations much, much quicker to ourselves, but it's a totally different way to also show up and create in this reality. So everything is entangled through a resonance, and there's an infinite field of probabilities. And what you're experiencing right now and what you're seeing right now in your reality is really just a minutia fractal of those infinite probabilities that are available to you. In fact, it's kind of a residual of past resonances that you have experiences or put out into the field, because it takes a moment for reality to reflect that back to you. But what we tend to do is we go, oh, this person broke up with me, or my bank account is looking really sad and sorry, or you know, my body is not the way that I want it to be. I'm failing. I'm unworthy. I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. And we take that residual fractal that we're perceiving through our senses as the truth of what is, and that impacts our resonance. It impacts how we further go forward and play with the field around us. So what you find because of this is a lot of people get looped into much of the same situations, feast to famine, always getting broken up with, always encountering weird, strange people. It doesn't matter if they travel, if they move, if they change companies, if they completely pivot their business. It's the, you know, different place, different face, same door, same horse type of thing. So we need to expand ourselves beyond what we can actually perceive in order to create something differently for ourselves, to play with the non-physical and that field of infinite probabilities available to us. Because you are a non-physical being playing in this physical playground, you too are a fractal of this infinite probability. Meaning you already have access to all of the probabilities that you desire for yourself. I'm going to be speaking mostly on the topic of money in resonance rituals, because I know that's what a lot of people in this group want to cultivate or manifest for themselves. But bear in mind that anytime I'm speaking about money, by the way, this applies to love, this applies to health, this applies to any other manifestation or desire that you have in your life. Because you are a fractal of these infinite probabilities, you're a non-physical being, you have access to all the probabilities available to you. The money that you desire already exists. In fact, it is you. It's already you. It's already in your field. It's already in your life. It is you. This is one of the reasons why I don't like to ask myself questions like, what can I do today to make more money or to create more money in my business? Those kinds of questions to me are they're not useful to me, and they're irrelevant to me, because I understand that money is already there. There's nothing to be created. It already exists in my field. It already exists as a probability because it is me. Instead, I ask myself questions like, how can I honor myself today? How can I celebrate myself today? Those are the kinds of questions that I find more useful for myself, that actually expand the wealth. Because the question of how can I create wealth automatically puts you at a distance from what you desire. It creates kind of a separation that indicates you don't have that. What I want you guys to understand is that you are money. You are the wealth that you seek. You are the abundance. You are the love. You are the health. You are the happiness, the play, the flow. That's you. It's already there. It's already created. It is you. I am. There's no separation. When we take the physical world as the truth of what is, the mind begins to create a separation for us. Maybe this is part of life. It's what makes it fun, maybe, as a infinite, boundless, non-physical being. We come into the physical playground to forget ourselves a little bit because it's a little bit fun to be like, oh. But it is our mind that creates the separation. You already are the wealth that you seek. You already are the money. There's no separation whatsoever. Now, what does it look like to show up and create at the level of the non-physical, of resonance before the physical? So in my own life, when I first started to grow my business, I first launched a freelancing business, and I had studied business in university. I did 4 years in university. Never once was the word alignment mentioned, not once in 4 years. I now realize that's one of the most important metrics of success, that you're actually following a compulsion of your core. You're following flow, you're following your greens. And I was raised in households and in societies, like many of us, where the ethos was you work really hard, you apply yourself really hard, you sacrifice. You know, a lot of the masterminds that I've attended through my career, the ideologies of like, or it was almost like glorified, like, yeah, I don't work, I work weekends, you know, I didn't spend time with my kids because I sacrificed so that I could get here, right? And I absorbed this, like most of us do as well. And I believe that this was the way that wealth and money and success are created. When I first launched my freelancing business, I was, the first 3 years I gave birth twice to my 2 children. So I gave birth a month after I launched my business, and my daughter came 16 months after, 17 months after. And I was not there for my children. My daughter went into daycare 1 month after she was born, and she's super clingy nowadays because of that, I think. She's very, very clingy. So I missed that really crucial part of my kids as babies. I was working into late nights. I had a nanny driving them to daycare because I didn't even have time to do that. Even when we would take family holidays, it was like I couldn't disconnect. Always I had a to-do list in the back of my head. I became addicted to this kind of energy that I was bringing to the table. My resonance, if you will, was this kind of like frenetic, forceful hustle, busy, 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 busy. If I stopped being busy, it was like I would feel uncomfortable, like the house of cards would fall down. Has anyone experienced this before? It's like even when you go on holiday and you're like, okay, my schedule is clear, I can technically relax. I couldn't, because I had become so addicted to that resonance of creation that my mind was like, something's going to go wrong. Something's going to go wrong. You got to be busy. You got to be hustling. You got to bring this energy. I don't regret anything that I've done in the past, but I understand now there's a much different way to go about things. Unfortunately, I wasn't exposed to these ideas at that time in my business. It was only about 3 years in, a lot of cold calling, attending conferences. I went through so many cycles where I would take out loans from banks and then hire a team. Okay, I'm going to grow my business now. I got the team. And then we would run out of cash and I'd have to let everyone go. That happened like 2 or 3 times in 3 years, which brought a whole lot of shame along with that. That was like a whole circuit of shame and embarrassment and failure. And it was 3 years in that I hired my very first business mentor. And unbeknownst to me at the time, he was deep into mindset. A lot of mindset work, manifestation work is rooted in the divine feminine. And he introduced me to a lot of these concepts, and my business just took off really, really quickly. I went from 5K months to $80,000 months in 1 month, guys. I did not have followers. I did not have big groups. I did not have any of that. So for those of you guys that are listening to this today going, Kat, this is all well and good for you. You've got lots of followers. You've got a big audience. Sure, but I didn't come from that. That wasn't where I came from. Now, despite being introduced to these concepts of mindset and manifestation, I was still very much addicted to the hustle mentality, the sacrifice, the busyness for the sake of being busy. And after about, I'd say 4 more years, so seven years in total of owning that business, I was at a stage where my nervous system was so shot to buggers. I was completely burned out. And I felt so trapped in my circumstances by what I had created around myself. I had huge expenses, a huge team that depended on me, massive payroll, massive office lease to pay every month. I didn't know how to entangle myself from that. And I was working mostly from the divine masculine at that stage. And it led to a mental breakdown where I walked away from the company. And it was in this moment that I began to recreate the way that I had built my business, managed my business, which was much more rooted in the non-physical, the divine feminine. So what it looks like for me nowadays is that whereas in the past, 4 or 5 years ago, my priority was my to-do list, physical, divine masculine, do, push matter with matter. Where that was my priority 4 or 5 years ago, these days, my priority is my resonance, my energy. It is the thing that I prioritize above anything else. And what this looks like nowadays is that I have opportunities that come to me. I have clients that come to me. I've created 2 books in 1 year. This may not seem like a big deal to some of you guys, but I have aspired to be an author my whole life. So for me, it's like, what just happened? Because I've written hundreds of manuscripts before that. None of them ever saw the light of day. And then suddenly, 2 books in 1 year. It's wild to think about. I do not have a lot of expenses. In fact, I have 1 VA, part-time VA. My business is so lean. The margins are so high. Even though I'm not making $20 million that I made in my last company, I am enjoying a totally different cadence to life. It requires minimal effort from my end. Things come to me. I shared recently how even just last week, I sent the wrong printing file to the printers for Money Magic. And that was a $5,000 mistake. And I remember thinking, at first I was like, oh shit, okay. And then I was just like, you know what? It's going to work out. It's going to work out. I don't know how it's going to work out. The guy emails me back. He's like, it's going to cost another $5,000. I'm like, okay, whew. I don't know how, but this will get sorted. They'll get sorted. And then about a few hours later, he messages me and says, oh, I have some great news. The pages have not been bound yet. So it's actually not going to cost that much. It still cost me $1,000, but it's much different to 5K. I've had another experience like that just last week where something with Egypt, the retreat I'm planning in Egypt, there was some unforeseen costs. And I prioritized my resonance, my energy. I felt into the vibration of it's going to serve me, it's going to work out, everything will be fine. and I get an unprompted call by the charter company telling me there's a $5,000 discount because I'm not going through a travel agent, which was the amount of the unexpected costs. So those are just two little examples that have happened very recently in my life, but this kind of stuff happens to me all the time, where solutions, opportunities, unexpected synchronicities just come into my life. So it is radically different to how I used to create 4 to 5 years ago, where it was like this busy, oh, I'm just gonna mute somebody, busy hustle energy behind everything that I did. Now I prioritize my resonance, I prioritize my energy, and there's a lot less workload. And things are just flowing a lot easier. Now, I want to be very clear here. I'm not trying to shit on hard work or say that there's never a time to use the physical and show up with the divine masculine. In fact, sometimes it feels very good to do that. As I've been editing and preparing Money Magic, I definitely spent more time working in my business. But this was an activity that energized me. It felt good to be in the thick of it, doing the work that I knew needed to be done. So sometimes it's very good to get ourselves in that river, using our arms and our muscles and swimming and using the divine masculine. This is not to say we're never going to need hard work or we're never going to want to do that. There are definitely instances where it feels really good to apply yourself in the physical in this way, because the truth is you are in a playground of physical. So everything does start from the non-physical, but there's also a component where, yes, it feels absolutely great to apply yourself physically as well. So I don't want to give the impression here that we're just going to completely throw work out the window. But the difference is we don't become